Welcome to the Beyond Anxiety podcast, where we talk about dismantling mental health stigmas, mental health awareness through education, and strategies for overcoming mental health challenges. I'm your host, Darius Fennell, and I'm a mental health and therapy advocate, published author, speaker, and coach. I'm so excited for you to be here. I'm so excited to get into this next episode. So if you're ready, let's go. Welcome. Thanks for tuning in to the Beyond Anxiety podcast. This is season 1, episode 6. Today we'll be talking about discipline, superpower, 5 elements you need to recover from anxiety. And really, these 5 elements can apply to many different areas of life. And so sometimes that word discipline can be looked at as like an unpleasant word. You know, you think about being in trouble or, receiving some type of bad report about performance or something like that. So we had to write up a disciplinary, whatever. We had to take disciplinary action, right? But this is a little different because you can't just haphazardly recover. You can't just haphazardly achieve some type of goal or reach some type of milestone. You need some type of system in place. And I feel like one of the number one things that is missing, everybody kind of looks at motivation. You got to stay motivated. Motivation comes and goes, just like an emotion. And not to say that it's not important, but it's just simply not sustainable. But discipline, in these 5 key areas that I believe make up discipline, is what is key in order to reach some type of milestone, summit, goal, or status, or whatever you're trying to reach. And so let's just jump right into it, right? The first thing that I believe that you need, the first element of discipline, that is you got to have some type of goal, right? What is the actual focus of what it is you're trying to do or achieve? In this case, in the context of anxiety recovery, that is, it's a goal. I won't say it's the only goal, because I had to learn later on that I couldn't just focus on overcoming debilitating anxiety, right? It's bigger than just that. And you end up focusing so much of your day on anxiety that it's hard to think about anything else. And in a way, you kind of keep yourself stuck because you have the mindset, I've got to fight it, I've got to beat it. Don't let it get to me. Oh, ignore it. And that approach doesn't work. And I had to find that out the hard way. But more so focusing on making a goal, at least for myself, I'm speaking personally, is to be free and have freedom, right? Here's the other keyword that I had to accept in therapy, and that is nuance, right? And accepting that life is composed of a lot of gray and a lot of gray areas. It's not all black and white. It's not all 0 and 1. Although when you're in survival mode, you kind of have to have that mentality so that you can make a decision that allows you to survive the day, right? But it's just like looking at the weather. Like the day can have sunshine and rain at the same time, right? It can rain in the morning and be sunny in the afternoon. You can actually see the sunshine out and it's still raining. And most of the times, you see a rainbow, right? So yeah, it really comes down to saying, you know what, I accept all the parts of myself, all the parts of the circumstances, and it doesn't mean that I necessarily agree with it or that I'm going to be stuck here, I'm going to stay here. It's understanding that control is an illusion, and so is certainty. And you don't have to feel like you're worthy or that you've quote unquote made it when everything aligns up and everything is perfect. All right. But the real question and part of the goals is, what kind of person do I want to become? Not just what do I want to accomplish, but who do I want to be? And that's an important question to really ponder and think about. Not just something you haphazardly just kind of check a box. Okay, I want to be this. All right, let's get on with it. No, really think about it, because this is gonna encompass so many different aspects of your life. Right? Who you become determines what you do, what you don't do, what you allow in your life, what you don't allow in your life. All right. So the goal of freedom, I'll speak to my own personal goal. When I was going through the whole recovery thing, freedom, good quality of life, and having a plan to thrive. Right? If you are accustomed to anxiety, you know what it's like to just try to survive and get through the day. And sometimes it's absolute hell. Sometimes the symptoms of overthinking, ruminating, and nervousness, and tingles in your extremities, and all types of weird stuff, shortness of breath, tight throat, tight chest, dissociation, sometimes those last all day. In that survival mode, your goal is just to try to make it to bedtime. And if you get to bedtime, hopefully you get to go to sleep. Maybe. Pretty please. If you've been in the throes of deep debilitating anxiety, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Right? But really, when it comes down to setting goals, this is really something that you want to do with a therapist. And again, I'm going to beat this drum until I tear up the drumsticks and the drum itself, because you're not going to hear me talk and not talk about the importance of going to therapy. But really, that is an excellent place to set goals. And really, your therapist will be able to help you, to help guide you to set goals that are realistic. Right? And sometimes the realistic aspect is the amount of time you think it's going to take to recover. That was my biggest problem. I'm like, look, give me a checklist, give me some books, give me some exercises. In 2 weeks, I'll be back to where I was. Did not work that way. And my therapist, thankfully, was experienced enough to not let me go down that avenue, and, help me to find another way. Right? But for me, those were the goals: freedom, good quality of life, having a plan. All right. Good segue into number 2. You need systems and tools. All right. Systems are habits with structure. They remove the friction of guesswork. You know exactly what it is you need to do. You have a system in which you do it. You're able to get it done in almost an automated fashion. All right, what does that mean? That means you come up with some type of morning and evening routines. Something that you can do repetitively, that is repeatable over and over and over again. Right? Coming up with a toolkit. It's one of my favorite ones, and I talk about this in my book, Leaving Jupiter, Navigating Your Anxiety Recovery. Toolkit is paramount. What are some things, and again, some of these I developed with my therapist. Some of them just came by experimentation that I gave feedback to my therapist about and said, when XYZ situation happens, I have these particular tools in place, right? But that's still reactive. So you need something to hook into your daily routine that is proactive, that says, you know what, regardless of whether I have an anxiety symptom or not, these are the things I'm going to do on a daily basis that will help contribute to my recovery. Right? So if motivation is your spark, which you do need that, your systems are your engine, very thing that keeps it going. You want to build an environment to support your goals, right? That includes what? Times, actions, thinking, and getting rid of anything that does not support that, right? The third thing you need is tracking. As I said in a previous podcast, you cannot grow what you do not track. The role of tracking is to allow yourself to be held accountable and also look over time to do a feedback with yourself, and hopefully if you're with a therapist, with your therapist, right? They certainly are taking notes, and they certainly are going to use that to kind of understand what type of progress that you're making. But you also need to be doing this yourself, even if you're not in therapy, right? It's not just about the numbers, where you are, and what type of goals that you hit. Even though that's important, you want to develop awareness. Awareness is probably the most important, not, I won't say most important. In terms of the order of things, awareness is probably the first important thing that you need to do, right? But you don't have awareness unless you have something to look at and look at over time, right? You get to see what your habits are. You get to see what your moods are, your symptoms, right? And that maybe allows you to do a weekly review. If you are into like health tracking, some of you will have the health tracker devices that either is built into a watch or some type of wristband, or some of them built directly into your phones. Some of them can help you track your sleep, right? I looked at mine over the last month and I was like, ooh, I need to make some adjustments here. But I would have no way of knowing that unless I saw something that was recording everything in terms of sleep and even the number of steps. I have a goal of making sure I get 10K steps a day. How do I know how well I did? Well, the device will capture all that stuff. You know, some days it rains or you're not feeling well. Okay, give yourself some grace. But if you're going 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and you start to see a trend of sedentary activity or zero activity, then there's a problem. You don't want it to go that far, right? So holding yourself accountable is vital to utilizing a system that you build, right? Here's number 4, and this one, ooh, many of y'all are, this is going to be a tough one, right? Sort of connects with the accountability thing, but you have to be open to correction, right? This is the verb part of it, right? Getting corrected. It's a part of the process. Who in your life can tell you when you were wrong, how you were wrong, and point out some of the blind spots that are in your life, or maybe some of the mistakes that you're making, right? And this isn't someone who's waiting to just zap you every time you make a mistake, right? Like, that's not a friend or someone who's helping to promote your growth. That's someone who's trying to make you feel bad. But I mean someone who's like a mentor, a coach, a close friend, perhaps a manager, that can point out certain things, right? And it shouldn't be the only thing that they're pointing out, but it does still need to have attention brought to it, right? It's not something that should be rigid or condemning, but in order to grow, you need to know what things need to be improved, right? I actually like these types of things. Every coach, manager, friend who has been honest enough, and I mean good raw honesty, to say, here's some of the shortcomings, right? And there's a way to say it, but at the end of the day, you want to extract that core truth of, you know what? Maybe you did have the best of intentions, but intentions and execution are not the same thing. And if the goal is for growth, then we got to look at where things aren't as efficient as they should be. All right. I crave these types of things. No, it doesn't always feel good because we all like to hear the good things that we're doing or hear good feedback, but you have to have it. I look back at when I was in high school and doing track and field. I had coaches that would not allow us to sell ourselves short with the effort and practice or with our attitude. Because if you want to win, you want to grow, all those things are important. I had one coach that used to ask me, but then right in practice, right? Sometimes, you get to the third or fourth rep, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm tired. Let me just take it easy on that one. No, but you said you want to be the champ. And this requires for you to give champ-like effort. You have to exert yourself like the person you want to be. And my coach would call me over and say, come here, young man, let me ask you a question. And I'm sitting there out of breath. Did you give me your best on that last one? And be honest. And I'd shake my head and say no. He said, well, you know what that means, right? And the first time he asked me, I was like, nah, what's that mean? He's like, you got to do it again. I'm like, oh my, are you kidding me? He's like, well, you want to be champ, right? Yes, this is what it takes. But I remember that same coach, as I'm doing more specifically, this is with triple jump. And if any of you have done any type of field events, especially jumping events, for track and field, you know that there's endless bounding and all types of hopping drills that you have to do. And for me, we used to do single leg for 100 yards, alternating on the left and the right foot, but on the same foot all the way down and on the opposite foot all the way back. And it was painful, but I remember asking my coach, I said, listen, I want to be champ. I want to be the best. And I remember the very first time that I did it, I finally did it with the effort that was required. I'm sitting there on the ground. I'm trying to catch my breath. My lips are all crusty. My body's on fire. And if you're an athlete, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Like you're feeling awful because you've met that threshold of giving it your best. And your body's reacting to it. And I remember he kind of flipped me over, and I'm kind of looking up at him like, let me get my breath. And he said, this is what it takes to be champ. And then from then on, I said, okay, I will embrace this. And the results spoke for themselves. But you need someone who can be honest enough to point out the things that you need to improve, right? And again, if you're one who's like so sensitive that you can't hear correction, then you have to think about, is growth something that you're actually serious about, right? It's just like if you're with a personal trainer or you go to physical therapy. There's aspects of what you have to do there, many aspects of it that don't feel good. But if you embrace it, you know that it's going to improve you and help you to grow. Whatever injury you had or whatever goal you're trying to reach, you're that much closer to it. It's not an easy ride. And I think now we're just so prone to not want to offend anybody. And again, there's a way to say things. But in order to actually grow, I'm going to say this over and over again, you have to be pointed out the things that are not as efficient. Right? And I look at every area of my life where I've embraced that and I've thrived in. And areas where I didn't want to be accountable, well, you're going to stay right there where you are. So I actually thank the people. Thank you for being honest with me. Thank you for letting me know that. Now it's up to me to make a choice to say what changes, or going back to number 3, what system do I need to put in place to make improvements? Right? And once you've done that, what's the likelihood of you hearing some of those things again? Probably not if you're executing right and staying accountable and getting the feedback that you need. Right? The worst of it is, okay, now you know what it is. Now you can move on. Or now you have the awareness to say, okay, that's what the manager or the mentor or friend was telling me about. I see it. And I want to fix that. And it's not to say that you're broken and all hope is lost, but we all have habits that aren't beneficial or habits that aren't efficient. Right? And it's about making the adjustments. Right? You're using mistakes as data, not judgment. And you don't need to start over. All hope isn't lost. The sky's not going to fall. It's just you need to make the adjustment. That's it. That's as simple as it is. You lick your wounds, thank the person for being honest with you, and honestly, the fact that they're brave enough and have the courage to tell you, if you go to the depths of it, they actually care about you, right? If you're my opponent, I'm not going to tell you what you're doing wrong. I'm going to explain it, right? If you see someone on the opposite team, you're playing basketball, whatever sport it is, and they have a certain weakness or a habit that's not benefiting their team, that's good for you, right? And even though I'm talking about that in the context of a game, it shows you the mindset of one person towards another. And there are many mentors that said things that I thought were, and managers as well, that I thought, man, that was kind of rough. But in hindsight, it was like, that was exactly what I needed. Because guess what? I wouldn't have changed otherwise. Or I wouldn't have brought light and awareness to say, okay, let's make this adjustment. If they hadn't come the way that they did. You know? So really, the person who's going to be honest with you and tell you those things, that's the one that really loves you. Right? And again, can people work on how they say stuff? Of course, especially when it's pointing out something that's not right. You know, but at the end of the day, extract the core truth and say, is there any element of what has been pointed out that is true? Yes. 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 Okay. Now that you've accepted that, what actions do you need to take? What areas do you need to be accountable in? Right? And in the long run, I'm telling you, you'll look back, you're like, man, that actually helped. That worked. I'm better off for it. Right? And so now we get into the very last one. Last but not least, but you need to have consistency. Small steps. Repeat it daily. Win every time. I think it's one of the most underestimated superpowers. Consistency is greater than intensity. And this is one I've had to embrace in the last few years because I was great at being intense. And for different levels, different requirements, different environments, that worked. I knew there were others who maybe they were smarter than me, but you're not going to go out to the deep like I am. You know? But as you get older, you don't have the same resiliency and, you know, you're juggling a lot of different responsibilities. That intensity is going to get spread out. And to be truthful, it's not sustainable for the long run. Only for small pockets of times where you're going to be called upon to have to really step up and do some things, right? But not across the board, across all time, right? That's where you start to have other problems of burnout and anxiety, depression, and everything else, right? But focus on showing up and accept what your best looks like for that day. This was one of the other principles I learned in therapy. That your best yesterday or your best last week compared to your best today, it's going to oscillate. And it's okay. It's okay. You showed up. You did what you could. Tomorrow you're going to come back and try it again. The result may be greater or lesser. But the fact is, you're there and you're doing what you can. So give yourself a little grace with that. But it's your consistency that will help to build your identity. And you will become what you consistently do. And that's why I feel like it's underrated, but so very important. Right? And this is where journaling comes in. This is where accountability comes in. This is where therapy comes in. That's right. Therapy again. Not going to get away from it. You got to go. You got to do it. You got to do it. You don't have to, but I'm saying there's a very great chance that you would benefit from having that level of accountability and digging into the deeper issues of your mind, your emotions, and of your past. Because some of us are stuck there and we don't know how to move. And so we have unhealthy habits, unhealthy coping mechanisms. And most of these things, most people aren't even aware of, you know. But again, if you are willing to walk down the path of discipline, right? And just to recap, what are the 5 elements? You have goals set. You're very specific about what it is you're trying to achieve or who you are trying to become, more importantly. Number 2, you have a system set up, a system in place, routine. And those routines are done on a repeated basis. And it gives clarity to what it is that you should be doing. Right? Tools. You have the fitness trackers. You have a journal. You have going to therapy, where you can look at what's happening over time, which feeds into the 3rd element, which is tracking. Right? What is it that I'm doing over time, and how do I make an assessment, an observation, not a judgment, not a shaming thing, but something that says the data is what it is. And it's showing me the habits and showing me what fits into the 4th element, which is correction. What do I need to change and do different? How do I need to adjust? And then 5, last but not least, having that consistency. Right? So to reinforce, discipline isn't about pushing harder. It's not about shaming yourself. It's not about condemnation or feeling bad. It's not about focusing on all the things you're doing wrong. It's about aligning smarter and creating a natural flow of life, where your focal point is, again, becoming that person you want to be and flowing in that person that you want to be. Right? So challenge for you. Choose one area of your life that you want to optimize this week, whether it's sleep, exercise, going to therapy, dieting, breathing exercises, going for a walk. What is it? You know? And then the call to action, subscribe to Beyond Anxiety, to this podcast, and share it with someone who's looking to better themselves like you are. Right? And then also, there is the Leaving Jupiter Daily Journal, which allows you to do all the tracking and all the things. Right? And this week, since we are in the second half of May, I did mention that I was going to do some discounts on my book bundle, but you have to go through my website and not Amazon, even though it's available on both. In order to get the discount, you have to go through the website, and I'll be posting the link below in the comments. And yeah, I'm going to lower the price on the individual books and the bundle as well, because I really want you all to be able to benefit from the information that's in there, right? These are all the different tools and strategies, as well as the stories behind the things that I had to go through to reach recovery from debilitating anxiety. And listen, I still have my challenges every day. I had challenges this week, so I have to preach to myself. I have to take the same medicine that I'm preaching to everybody else, and I'm teaching everybody else. Right? I don't get a free walk just because I've, come out of the darkness. You can go back. You can hit rock bottom, and rock bottom can have a basement. So, never take for granted the freedom that you have. And without being disciplined, the whole point of this podcast episode, you can fall back into, dark places. And that's not what we're going to do. We're looking to thrive. So once again, I am Darius Fennell, the Beyond Anxiety podcast, the face behind Anxiety. And thank you for listening to this episode. And I am looking to have guests on in the very near future. I have a good list of people who've already committed. And we're actually going to be doing video. Majorities have been audio, but we're going to be doing video. And we'll see how that goes. It's going to be a fun time. So looking forward to that. So look forward to the next episode. We're still going to be doing the twice a month release. If things get a little bit more faster in terms of recording, then maybe we'll go to weekly. But for now, that's what we're going to do. Again, thank you for stopping by and listening. Thank you for your time. And again, you know my slogan, find your recovery path. Till next time, Hope Champions, take care.